Welcome to Education in Our Community. I am co-hosting today with Miss Lora Sall, and I am your joint host, Rev R.L.McKnight. Welcome to the show. Today we want to explore the topic, past, present, and future, as we look at family as an institution, we look at church as an institution, and we look at schools as an institution. Welcome to the show, Ms. Sall. How are you today?
I'm happy to be here.
Oh, I'm happy that you decided to join us. It has been a long time since we have shared hosting education in our community. It is indeed a pleasure. So how have you been over these past months?
Wonderful. No complaints. The sun is shining. Another year is about to roll around. It seems that it goes fast, but there are 86,400 seconds in each and every day. And I try to fill each day with something positive, something loving and kind and spiritual.
That's excellent. I had a book. I shared it with a student. I frequently referred to it. I never read a single page in that book. I had it maybe for 5+ years. I saw it in a bookstore and I purchased it. Chances are he did not sell that many copies. I could have just went in and taken a picture of the cover. The cover of the book said, the title of the book was, "You Cannot Afford the Luxury of a Single Negative Thought." That's a shout out for that author. You cannot afford the luxury of a single negative thought. We cannot afford the luxury of one wasted second. We must take advantage of each and every second. And what an introduction that is into our topic, the past, the present, and the future. It's like opening a time capsule. It's impossible to understand the present, what is going on today, unless we do Sankofa. We return to the past and gain some knowledge of the past, which is history. And armed now with this knowledge of history, we can have a better understanding of what is presently and currently happening around us. And once we gain an understanding of the present, then we can sit down, we can come to the table, rationalize and strategize about the future to make certain that the errors and the shortcomings that we experience today will not be carried over into the future. History is extremely important. Malcolm said that history is memory, and without memory, man is reduced to the lower animals. It is that memory, it is that knowledge of history that allows us to operate at our highest, at our fullest potential.
Yes.
We were talking before the show that we represent our parents past here in the present. We are their future that they never saw. And the other night, as I was listening to President Barack Obama eulogize Congressman Cummings, he said something that caught my attention. President Obama said that our children are messengers that we send into a future that we will never see. What are your thoughts on that? That our children are the carriers of messages that we have instilled in them, that they will carry into that future that we will never see, as most of us who were born in the first generation to the second generation of what I think, yes, I would say it, of the 20th century. Mm-hmm. The first two generations, that's from 1900 to 1950. We are now living in a future that was unimaginable by our parents, not to mention our grandparents.
Mm-hmm. And our children will be living in a way that's unimaginable to us at some point, as they are our future.
Yes.
And our children's children are the future of their children.
Yes.
And so one thing that I receive emotionally from that statement that you said, Barack Obama said, is that there's hope. There is hope. You know, when I think of past, present, and future, I think about the fact that growing up, I grew up with parents who were so involved in their church and in what was written in the Bible and living their life according to that word.
Yes.
That even though things have changed for our generation, there are things that's instilled in me and my children that carry on from my parents.
Yes.
And so even though I may not attend church like my parents did every week, 2-3 times a week,
yes,
I still carry forth the behaviors and the blessings that they have passed on to me and that God has passed on to them, and I pass on to my children. And it's representative in how we respect and relate to each other. You can see it in my household, you can see it with other family members and how we relate to each other. And so that past that they grew up with is still being carried on through me and through my children. Does that make sense? You know,
that makes a lot of sense. That makes it's a little clearer to me now after having heard you share your observation of it. The only thing constant in the universe is change. You cannot prevent a stop change. But we must be prepared for the change. And rather than allowing our lives to be transformed by this change against those things that were embodied in us foundations do not change. When you begin to change basic foundations, the entire building is subject to collapse.
Okay.
So the changes takes place around the foundation.
Okay.
It's to begin all over again to destroy the foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe what I hear you saying, and you can correct me, is we are able to be successful and to make our way happily about the marketplace today because of the values that were instilled in us in our yesterdays, in the past.
Yes.
And so as long as we can maintain that knowledge, that our parents, that wisdom, they were so wise that they were preparing us all the time by sharing with us as children. And we yet recall the lessons that we were taught by our parents when it came to rearing our children, their grandparents. Because they are the only models, for the most part, that we had. The only training we received as parents was the training that we experienced at the hands of our parents.
Now, there are a number of people who are afraid of change. They see something negative in change happening, and especially today, and in the workplace, in the schools, and in our communities, when they see a change happening, there's a lot of pushback. While at the same time, our parents and grandparents were accustomed to change happening and without a choice. People that they lived around, other folks that were in charge of their lives, controlled how they moved forward externally, but it didn't control how they moved forward internally.
Wow.
And so what happens when you have that foundation moving forward and your children being that future and that foundation you showed to your children,
Yes.
then it's going to move forward in spite of what change is occurring. And so what we have to do is understand that hope is real. Hope is real. Having hope, having the belief that things will be all right, then you can be open to change without fearing it. And knowing that if our parents and grandparents were able to sustain and continue to move forward in spite of what was happening around them, then imagine what more we can do, and imagine what more our children will do. Because there's still that spirit that's inside of them, that was inside of our parents, that was inside of our grandparents, that's been passed on. And even though things are changing on the outside, what's inside of us is still constant and still moving forward with hope.
Your basic core values
Yes.
remains the same. I remember once Dr. King said, in every man's life, there should be this one special something that he should never compromise on, even at the cost of his life. And so while I welcome change, There are some very things that I hold very dear. I will not compromise on. And many of them are our priorities. You know, for some people it's family, for others it is career. Whatever it is, there should be something that you hold so dear to your heart that come what may, you will not let go of it. But only you can choose whatever it is. It's not a fad thing. Mm-hmm. It's not what someone else believes. It is what you yourself believe deep down in your heart. And again, that's internal. Mm-hmm. External things change all around us all the time. It would be foolish to try and stop everything externally that changes. Mm-hmm. I fought as long as possible to keep my mind out of the computer.
Yes.
It wasn't that many years ago.
Yeah.
I kept my memory writer, selective IBM electric typewriter. And it was cool because it had the eraser tape in it, you know. Yeah. And so the last time it broke, years ago, I took it in. And the guy said, "What am I supposed to do with that?" I said, "Put it in your museum." And, yes. And then I had my daughter begin to give me some pointers in terms of the computer.
Yes.
I'll never sit at a typewriter again. I'm not going to give away my computer. No more hard copies. Everything is at your fingertips. I resisted initially until I gained understanding of the greater benefits of it.
Yes.
And so I'm not going back to the poem and ink. I'm going to sit there at my typewriter. Not see, there I go. I'm going to sit there at my computer. And the same thing was true with the cell phone. Mm-hmm. I had said, nope, I don't have any addictions. Yes. I'm not going to become addicted to that phone. And then I almost had to go through a 12 steps program because, you know, I found myself, I was going to San Francisco. And when I got to about Grand Avenue coming from Hayward, I realized I didn't have my phone. I had left it at home. And it was a struggle, inner struggle, not to turn around and go back and get that phone.
Yes, yes.
I felt lost. I was able to make it through that afternoon, but I could hardly wait to get home.
To get your phone.
To get my phone.
And it's ironic that you say that because I know so many of us have experienced those changes occurring. I distinctly remember having to have a phone sent to me by my daughter because I just refused a cell phone. I said, if I'm not home, don't call me.
Forget it.
Yeah, don't call me if I'm not home. Or leave a message on the answering machine. Even that was a change for our parents to add an answering machine to the telephone.
Yeah.
And so I can remember playing a memory game with my grandson where you have to turn over a card and match pictures.
Yeah.
And he turned over a card and it was the picture of a telephone. And he said, "What's that?" He had no idea what it was because it was a landline. It wasn't a cell phone. And in his time, he had only seen cell phones. And so I had to explain to him before cell phones,
My God.
there was this telephone with receiver and a base, and you pushed the numbers into that base. And so with all of those changes, the cell phone changes about every 6 months. And now you have the S10 or the
11.
the 11s are out now, so the 10s are just out, and all of these things. And in spite of all of that, there is something in us that does not change. And so when it comes to our basic character, how we are towards one another, those things that go with us in spite of how many phones we have, how many computers we have. If the computer system and the phone system shut down today, there is something in us that will go forward in spite of what's happening. It's like, you know, the microwave oven. There was a time when we prepared everything on the stove. And if you wanted to heat something up, heat up leftovers, you added a little water to the pan and you reheated on the stove. There was nothing called a microwave. Now we're discovering that the microwave isn't good for you. It was a faster way, but the waves are really taking the nutrients out of the food, and it can possibly be causing more damage to you physically. And so once again, it's something external that is impacting how fast we get things done or how slow we get things done, how we need to move in this world. But there's that core, the essence that's inside of us that does not change. It moves forward with us. That basic core of what's inside of us goes right along with us in spite of what's happening around us.
And then there will come a point to where it will move on without us.
Yes.
It's called spirit.
Yes.
Disclaimer in case we live in such a small world, a relative or friend, I'm sharing it as it was related to me. Speaking of, we can do without sometime external means of communication. This young couple, I guess they were serious in their dating. When they decided that what we are going to do, though, we are never going to come over to each other's home without first calling ahead. And then one day, this young man went over to his lady friends. They don't call them girlfriends anymore. I would say fiance, and I take that back if it wasn't a fiance. He stopped by to see her. And no, he was passing by. He just wanted to pass by because he hadn't heard from her that day. And when he passed by, he noticed that her car was in the carport. And the paper was on the porch out front. And so he says, let me call her. And he called her. And there was no answer. And he knocked on the door, he tried the doorbell, and there was no answer. She had one of these little toy dogs, and he heard the dog yipping. And as he's walking to the side of the house, he heard water running forcefully. And so he decided to call the authorities to come out and to check on her. And they came out and made their entry into the home, heard the shower, knocked on the door, no one said anything, let themselves into the bathroom. And she had fallen, she had passed out in the tub.
Wow.
She had an aneurysm.
Wow.
She survived. And so much later she asked him, why is it you stopped by? We had this agreement that we would never stop by and visit each other unless we allowed the other one to know. And so he said, I felt you calling me.
Wow.
He said, I felt you calling me.
Yes.
And he stopped by. There have been times in my experience, and I'm certain in yours, where someone has crossed your mind, maybe before they improved telecommunication, and you picked up the phone to call them. And without your telephone ringing, they were calling you at the same time.
Yes.
And you say, isn't that strange? I was just thinking about you.
Yes.
And that is what I do not want to lose by over-dependency on something external,
Yes.
device mechanism to communicate, to call someone. We can call someone in spirit.
Yes.
I know that may be difficult to comprehend.
Yes.
Has that ever happened to you?
Absolutely. In fact, as you were speaking, I was thinking about the numerous times I've called a loved one and found that they were ill. And just because I thought about them and followed through with that thought, I was able to hear that they were ill and needed some assistance. And so, once again, we can continue to pay attention to what's happening in us spiritually, or we can let go of our inner thoughts and just follow what's happening externally. I was telling some young people recently, why are you texting each other on your phone when you're sitting at the same table? Why not look up and talk face to face to each other? You can get more from a verbal conversation.
Yes.
And the body language that goes along with that.
Thank you so much for taking time out from your schedule to share with us. I hope that we will have time to directly address the subject of change, since all of us are dealing with it. But until that time, this is Reverend R.L.McKnight saying so long for now.